Welcome back, everybody, to Pooley Mag TV, the raw, unedited, unscripted NUFC fan channel where everybody's got an opinion and nobody's opinion's wrong. So, today we're going to be discussing a bit of Newcastle United transfer news, some rumours, some hot topics, and whatever else is going on in Newcastle and what I can think to talk about today. I haven't made a video for about a week, so I thought I'd come back and give you all a slice of Pooley Mag TV that I know you have all been waiting for. Let's just jump straight into it. So, obviously, there's been a lot of rumours kicking about lately around Sandro Tonali's future. So we signed Sandro Tonali 3 years ago from AC Milan. He come in, he scored in his opening game against Aston Villa, looked really good, and then looked quite lightweight after that game, I thought. Watched him up until the ban, and I thought, I don't know if he's ready for the Premier League. Didn't really put a foot in, never really bossed a game, never really looked like the £55 million player we bought. And then obviously it come to light that he'd had a betting scandal and he'd had a gambling addiction, which, as somebody who's in recovery themselves and somebody who's fought addiction issues, I do have sympathy for him. And he went off for 10 months, full pay, and the crowd really, really got behind him, making songs up about him in a positive way. The manager always backed him in interviews. The club never turned their back on him, even though we probably were duped by AC Milan and himself, obviously. He did this. Whether it was a cut price deal for AC Milan to get a shot of him so he didn't disgrace himself at Milan, I'm not too sure. They're all conspiracy theories, aren't they? But what we do know is AC Milan will have known, and Sandro Tonali obviously knew because he was the one doing it. So, fast forward 10 months, he comes back, he doesn't get his game straight away. Sean Longstaff's still playing in front of him. And then he starts playing and he looks like he's got a point to prove. He comes back in and he's winning tackles all over, he's dominating midfields, and he's really, really going for it. And he's really repaying the faith that Eddie Howe and the management and the ownership and the fans really give him, and he's repaying it tenfold, and he was phenomenal, and he was great in the Carabao Cup final. It was his shot where I thought at the beginning of that final where I thought, we're up for this today. We're not just going to sit back. He didn't score it obviously, but he was great, and he was great from the moment he come back really. From the moment he started games over Sean Longstaff to the end of the season, he got his Champions League football. It was pivotal. He was a pivotal part of that team, and he was great, and he looked like a well beater. He looked like a player that was gonna. I was even messaging my dad saying I don't think I've seen a better midfielder for Newcastle since I've supported them. That's how good he was for them 6 or 7 months. Absolutely fantastic. He really was, and I thought, wow, if we can replicate this for a couple of seasons, we're going to do something special. And he might get his move back to AC Milan, or he might even get a move to a bigger club, i.e. Barcelona or Real Madrid. Or if he was to go to the Premier League, maybe he's Man City or something. But I thought we could carry on that dominance. We had a very, very untidy summer last season. A very disruptive summer. No hierarchy. Isaac leaving. Buying players who didn't fit Eddie Howe's mould. And Sandro Tonali was probably a shining light up until about October. In a really, really rough season, a really rough summer, really rough start of the season, he never looked out of place. Then he'd make some strange comments about his future at Newcastle United, of not really committing to his future and probably saying that he will leave and things like that. It was a strange conversation that he had, and it was a strange moment to do it. We were struggling really in the season, but we were starting to get back on our feet a little bit. We were doing well in the Champions League, and then this comes, and he wasn't the same after that. I can only really remember one game from them comments till the end of the season where he looked like the old Sandro Tonali, and that was against Villa away in the Cup. That was where he was like, yeah, and he scored 2 goals. That was the only game I can honestly say he looked anywhere near as good as what he did before them October comments. And that's, what does that say? I know he's had a child and that, and he's probably homesick and things like that, but what does that say about his dedication? What does that say to me? That he's wanted to leave Newcastle for a long time, and you know what? Players come and go. I've just spent 4 or 5 minutes on how good he is, but how inconsistent he can be and all. He wasn't really great when he first come, and then he was great, and then he was sort of not great again. So it's sort of like people go on about how he's this midfield maestro, and on his day he is. Don't get me wrong, he's as good as any midfielder in the Premier League on his day. But Mark Viduka was one of the best strikers in the Premier League on his day. Didn't have his day enough times, and neither has Sandro Tonali for me. And if he wants to go to Tottenham, well, that's a sideward step. At best, it's a sideward step. Finishing 17th both seasons in a row. And I know he wants to maybe go because it's London, it's the bright lights, Tottenham have got more money. And Roberto De Zerbi's Italian, and he knows that they're both from Brescia. So yeah, maybe there is a connection there, and maybe he does. But to go to Tottenham from Newcastle these days isn't a big leap. I don't know the ball players, and they've got a lot of money to spend, and they'll want to right the wrongs of the last 2 seasons. Roberto De Zerbi's a really good manager, but to go to Tottenham after finishing 17th last season, I just think it's a sideward step at best. But if we can get 80-90 million for him, I'd say off you pop. See you later. I won't cry no tears for Sandro Tonali, that is for sure. I don't think he's as good as what people make him out to be. I think he's a very good midfielder, but I think there's better midfielders out there, or just as good. I think Lucas Bergvall will do just as good of a job as him, and he's half the price. So if we can maybe get us a little bit of a swap deal and some money for Sandro Tonali for Lucas Bergvall, I'd quite happily go for that. I don't think he's a bad player, Tonali. I'm not going to sit and slate him and say, oh, he's shit, because he's far from shit. He's a very, very, very talented footballer when his head's in the right place. His head hasn't been in the right place for a long time, and it drags people down because he's getting a start over players like Lewis Miley, who should be starting over him for me. He's getting a start over like Jacob Ramsey at some point in the season, who could have played that role, and when he did, played it really well. So I just think if players like Gordon want to leave, players like Tonali want to leave, see you later. I'd be gutted if somebody like Bruno left, but he's going to leave at some point if we show no ambition this summer. I don't see him stopping past next season. I really don't. But that's another story for another time. Bruno's been looking class in the World Cup. Sandro's not in the World Cup with Italy. He tried his best, really, didn't he? He missed our derby to play in their 2 qualifiers. That says a lot about him and all, doesn't it? I don't think he's up for the fight at Newcastle. I don't think he's wants to play for Newcastle. I think he's seen as a stepping stone to get back to a bigger club. I think he was ushered and rushed out of AC Milan because of the gambling scandal, and we were dumb enough to pay £55 million for him. Don't get me wrong, for half a season he was fantastic, but the rest of it he's either been banned or off the pace for me. Is that £100 million player? Not in my eyes, it's not. But if we can get £100 million for him, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, see what happens. Watch this space with Sandro Tonali, but I won't lose no sleep if he leaves. Believe me. So moving on to some of the transfer rumours. Obviously we've got Keith Schmidt, who plays for AZ Alkmaar and called the young De Bruyne. I hate it when people get compared to these world-class players. It's just unnecessary pressure, and everybody plays a little bit different anyway. But if we can get a player like Keith Schmidt, who's half as good as Kevin De Bruyne, we're on to a winner, aren't we? I don't see him coming. I really don't. I can see him staying at AZ Alkmaar until he gets a really big move. I don't think Newcastle is a big enough destination for him. I don't think Eddie Howe, would get the best out of him. If I'm honest, I don't think we play the right type of football for Keith Schmidt. He's more of a possession-based player. We don't play possession-based football, and when we do, we seem to fuck it up a little bit, don't we? So I don't think he's the right type of player. Lamine Camara, now that's a type of player, big but powerful powerhouse. That's the type of player what Eddie Howe likes. He likes a runner, he likes an athlete, he likes somebody strong in the midfield, like a Joe Linton. I think he'd be a really good replacement for Tonali and a Joe Linton. He can play either role, Lamine Camara, and I think he's a very, very good player. He reminds me a little bit like a Sissoko type player on his day. He reminds me a bit like of what one of the Abdullah Faye, or them type of players, but better. But them type of big, strong athletes, which is what Eddie Howe likes, and And I always say, if you're going to get the best out of an Eddie Howe team, buy Eddie Howe type players, because they're going to buy into his philosophy. Don't start buying players and expecting them to change everything about them to fit your mould. Just go out there and buy the players that already fit your mould. It makes perfect sense to me. So Lamine Camara, I don't think he'll come to us, but he's definitely somebody who would be really good for an Eddie Howe team. And if we're going to stick by Eddie Howe and we're going to keep Eddie Howe and we're going to support Eddie Howe through this season, we need to buy Eddie Howe type players. Or Eddie Howe needs a lobotomy and completely change his philosophy. Which one's more realistic, guys? You know, he's not having a lobotomy. He ain't changing his philosophy. He's going to stick to what he knows best. So let's buy players that fit that mould. Lamine Camara does. James Trafford, we've been linked with James Trafford for about 3 years now. I don't see James Trafford coming, but we certainly need a goalkeeper, because this Jowan isn't the answer, is he? Could be in a couple of years, but he's certainly not the answer now. You can't go from League Two, not our League Two in France, and overtake Nick Pope. Even though Nick Pope's not great, you're not gonna. It just doesn't work like that for me. So he's going to be somebody who plays cup games. You know, whether it would get injuries and things like that, but he's not the answer. So we definitely need a goalkeeper, and I'd have James Trafford in an absolute heartbeat. James Trafford's a really good goalkeeper. Can play with his feet, modern type goalkeeper, good shot stopper, commands his box well and can only get better. Whether Man City let him go is another story. And then we've got Ayar here. He's a bit of an unknown for me, from Brighton. I don't really know much about him. So if anybody, I don't watch Brighton avidly, but when I have watched Brighton, I've never really seen him pop up. But I think he got 3 goals and 2 assists last season for Brighton. Is he a really good player? I'm not too sure. I'm not really sure on this guy, but you know, we need players in, guys. We need players to come in, and we need players to just boost the confidence. Because if I'm Bruno and I'm looking around this and I'm thinking, who the hell are we bringing in here? I'm playing in Brazil at the World Cup around superstars, and I'm coming back to Newcastle with fucking nobodies. That's what I'd be looking at. That's what I'd be thinking. I'd be thinking I'm playing with absolute superstars here at Brazil, and I'm coming back to Newcastle and we look like a fucking championship squad. That's what I would be thinking if I was him, because he is a superstar. Bruno is our superstar, but you can't just be a one-man team all the time. So we either need to play to Nick Voltemada's strengths or get shot of him and bring somebody else in. You know, and I know with Balogun and all has been linked to replace Wissa. If you're gonna get rid of Wissa, get rid of Voltemada, try and get a bit of money in and start again. For me personally, I'd keep Voltemada, but if you're not going to play to his strengths, then sell him. You know, if you're not going to play to Voltemada's strengths and build a team around him, which is what he needs, then sell him. But it's definitely a make or break window for us, and it's certainly a make or break window for Eddie Howe. And at the minute, it's more break than make, isn't it? But anyway, what does everybody think of this? Do you think we're going to get any of these signings that we're linked with? Do you think Sandro Tonali is going to go to Tottenham? Comment down below, hit like and hit subscribe. And as I always say, keep it black and white and keep it Pooley Mag TV. Over and out, folks.